He joined the Eagles. Well, Andy Reid's 1. Sirianni is now 2. Sean McDermott 3. Does anyone want to give Sirianni any credit? Guy did shave his head, occasionally acts nutty on the sidelines, but the guy wins football games.
I will. Look, to me, it's all about wins and losses. Your record. I don't care if the dude can't spell X's and O's. If he commands the respect.
I'm not going
I'm serious. If he can get his players to execute and to play hard for him and they win, that's a good coach. I believe in professional sports, all the head coaches know X's and O's. They all know strategy. It's who can get the players to execute and play hard and win. And so, like Larry Bird, when he was coach of the Indiana Pacers, he had Rick Carlisle and Dick Harder. They were his coordinators on offense and defense. Bird was just like, I'm Larry Bird. I'm a legend. Y'all play hard for me.
But that's kind of the opposite of this.
No, but I'm just saying he wasn't like doing a lot of technical things, and they win. So I got to get to do. Look, 4 seasons in Philadelphia. You saw the second best record. 2 Super Bowl appearances. And they were a 4-win team when he got there. And Jalen Hurts was viewed as, maybe he's a legitimate starter in this league. So I got to give the dude credit.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give him credit, especially this season, because he was one of those coaches where I didn't know if he was going to make it through the end of the season without being let go of his duties. And I want to say it was the New Orleans Saints game where he almost botched that as far as game managing. After that, he got better and better and better. And so throughout the course of the season, and we don't even talk. We might think it.
I don't know. We talked the divisional round, the 2nd and 7 with Jalen Hurts on one leg, and all of a sudden Matt Stafford's driving down the field down 6. We was talking about it.
I mean, no. That was
you were talking about.
No, Coach Mangini, who fires no one, said that if they scored a touchdown there, he thought Sirianni could have gotten fired.
That was an odd mix of Kellen Moore and we don't know who to assign that to.
Well, Kellen obviously called it. He does have to sign off. Yeah.
All right, so Wilds. Want me to be nice or be honest? You pick. You can pick for the audience.
I'd prefer you to be honest, but you didn't like him because he shaved his head.
No, I hate when you say that.
It's true,
that's the second time you've done it. That's a lie. That's
You said, when's the last time you've seen someone?
No, I said you don't shave your head on a winning streak. I said there's few. You don't go to a recovery meeting with everything's going great in your life, and you don't randomly shave your head when everything's going great in your life.
Hasn't lost a game since shaving his head.
So I thought it was a sign of someone he had just screamed at his own fans, almost lost to the Browns, showed up with a shaved head. I thought this guy might be losing the plot a little bit. That part's true. But my skepticism of him far predates any hair decisions. Here's the thing. I have always said wins are not a quarterback stat, they're a coaching stat. His stats are amazing.
Come on. What are we doing? Who's responsible then? Why do the Eagles win?
You preaching to the choir.
So it's the GM?
Yeah, I mean, he's the most powerful person in the organization.
Look, he's giving him talent. But I said,
if you're asking me who I'm giving more credit for.
They were 4-11-1 the year before Sirianni got there.
Yeah, and 2 years before they won the Super Bowl, Brew.
Did
still.
Sirianni hire his defensive coordinator?
No.
Exactly.
Did he hire his offensive coordinator? No, Howie Roseman did. So again, I'm not
Howie Roseman, he gets all the credit.
I give Howie credit. I'm just saying we have to give Sirianni credit. And I'm not putting him with Sean McVay and Andy Reid and guys like that.
Why not?
Just saying.
See, that's the thing.
Why not?
They're like
what are they doing?
Geniuses.
Oh, well, my goodness.
Seriously,
How's it play out?
Andy Reid's playing out pretty well.
Andy Reid, I'll give you.
Sean McVay plays out.
Sean McVay did great. He's watching the games just like us. I'm just saying, the guy wins. We just can't. Here's what I want to know. If a guy, Robert Saleh, who I thought was a good coach, I had no evidence he was a good coach.
No, this part you're right about.
Because he couldn't win. He just wasn't winning. You could point at this, you could point at that. I thought he was a good coach. I just did. But I had no argument because he couldn't win. You might not think Sirianni's a good coach. What's the proof?
No,
because the players don't like him.
It sounds like you're putting him as number 2.
No.
I am, because he's number 2.
Okay. There's a lot that I want to say about this, and they all miss so much. I love how Nick says oh, I'm a win-loss guy for coaches. That's a coaching stat. But when it comes to Nick Sirianni, no. Like, gosh, man, talk about, changing the rules and moving the goalpost around. That's just a bunch of nonsense. I want to show you guys this clip. This is from the NFC Championship game. I don't know if you guys saw this. Philadelphia Eagles fans may have seen this. The Eagles won 55-23 in the NFC Championship game. Oh, I see. It even says at the bottom screen, Eagles defeat Commanders 25-23. Nick Sirianni reaches second Super Bowl in 3. Okay, so you guys probably did see that, I assume, right? Okay. Let me just show you this clip real fast. All right. This was right after the Austin Eckler fumble, okay? This is what they had to say about Nick Sirianni and that play.
Somebody that's happy about what they just saw right here. Nick Sirianni, every single team meeting, every time he's together with his group, he always says, when a guy gets up with the ball, I want you to try to punch it out. It is something he talks about constantly with his team.
Yeah, and it's worked. Again, leaders in the NFL in forced fumbles, 3 of them today.
Leaders in the NFL in forced fumbles. Do you think that helped them win? The Commanders were driving. The Commanders scored there. The score is 34-20 in the fourth quarter. 4-point game in the fourth quarter. And directly because of something that Coach Sirianni, the head coach, Nick Sirianni, kept preaching and preaching. This is what you do. This is what you do. This is what you do. Some of those little things that directly lead for your team to win and get to a literal Super Bowl. But sure, let's not give any credit to Nick Sirianni, because that almost makes sense. I just love how if that was any other coach, right? If it was Dan Campbell, whoever, and we have that little soundbite in that game, people would be praising said coach. I mean, it was the Eagles' defense and their attack that went after it, that forced those turnovers, that forced those fumbles. These were not fluke fumbles. These weren't fumbles where people were just kind of getting regular tackles and then the ball just comes loose, or, just something weird stuff, or like, oh, he loses it as he's falling down. Oh, no. And that's not what it was. This was high-level coaching, high-level execution, led by a coach who is constantly drilling it into his players, which matters. That's what good coaches do. That's what good coaches do. They make sure that some of these important aspects of gameplay are in the front of your mind. That's what Nick Sirianni brought. That's just like a perfect direct example. Not to mention that the Philadelphia Eagles were ready to play, man. They were ready to play. The Commanders weren't ready to play. The Packers weren't ready to play. The Texans weren't ready to play. The Buffalo Bills weren't ready to play. The Ravens weren't ready to play. The Philadelphia Eagles were ready to play. Philadelphia Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. And again, I criticize Nick Sirianni. And I do have concerns when you're a coach and you're not really running the offense or the defense, because then you are at the mercy of your coordinators. That personally makes me uncomfortable, without a doubt. Fangio leaves and Kellen Moore leaves, you got to start over. Now, the good news is for the Philadelphia Eagles, it doesn't feel like Fangio's going anywhere. Seems like he's just, he's kind of doing his Spags thing. I'm just staying here. I'm good. I get to completely run this defense. I get to sit up in the booth. I get to just chill and just do what I love, defense. I'm not trying to be a head coach. So that's great. The problem is the offensive coordinating aspect. That's where the Chiefs had that benefit, because Andy Reid is obviously the one who's the brains behind the offense. So, yeah, that's kind of a thing. The Philadelphia Eagles lose Kellen Moore. It's like, okay, where do you go from there? That is the biggest drawback of Nick Sirianni. That really can't even be argued against. It's the biggest drawback when you have a coach who's not the play caller, not the play designs, not the real brains behind that. But at the same time, when you also have a walk-around coach, which is what they're called with Sirianni, is that they have the ability, and Greg Olsen talked about that, they get to really manage the game. They get to really talk to all the players, talk to the other coaches. They get to drill little things like that, Like, hey, when someone's on the ground and getting up, you punch it out. You punch it out. Whereas if you're really locked in the X's and O's, sometimes you kind of leave some of that stuff out there. And you can see that in certain teams. You can absolutely see that. You see that in Kevin O'Connell teams, Sean McVay teams. You see some of that stuff lacking. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So it's pros and cons. And yeah, if the Philadelphia Eagles ended up losing to the Rams in a last-minute devastating, touchdown to lose the game, I think there would have been a great chance that Sirianni got fired. Because that's just who the Philadelphia Eagles are. That's just who they are. They demand this. With this roster and all of that, they demand Super Bowls. So yeah, anything, it's not even reaching the NFC Championship game and then having the Washington Commanders get there. Yeah, I do think, unfortunately, Sirianni would have gotten blame. It's just a reality, honestly. It really is. I mean, Doug Peterson got fired after winning a Super Bowl. And yeah, Howie Roseman is the brains of this operation. Like, they act like that's somehow a bad thing. Or like this hasn't been completely collaborative. This is what I kind of keep trying to say to everyone. This is not just about Saquon Barkley. This is not just about Jalen Hurts. This is not just about Fangio. This is not just about any individual. It's just not. Fangio, brains of the defense. Kellen Moore, brains of the offense. Harry Roseman, just constructing an awesome roster. Nick Sirianni, the culture. Getting his team ready, focused. They are drilled in the we, not me. And believe me, when you get a little bit older, it seems so obvious. But these are a lot of young guys. These are guys in their early 20s, and you lose sight of that because these are guys that have a lot of money and are really successful. They're kids. They got a kid mentality, man. They play a kid sport and get paid millions of dollars. If you ever listen to a lot of these guys talk, you're like, ooh, like these are kids. They're closer to kids than grown 35, 45-year-old men. It's just a reality, especially when you're like 25 years old. I mean, think about it. 10 years ago, you're like 15. I mean, Jalen Hurts 10 years ago was 16 years old. That's a little boy. So these are kids. It's not insulting to say. It's just reality. They're literally closer to being high school age than like real, true grown man age. And so having a leader like Nick Sirianni matters. And they respond to it. And again, I am not going to hide. I kept saying that the Philadelphia Eagles deserve a legendary coach because they are a legendary franchise. I said they deserve an all-time great coach because they are an all-time great franchise. And it's true. It's absolutely true. I stand by that. Maybe Sirianni really is him. I don't know. I err on the side of that not being true. But I'm also not going to now take away credit. Again, that's why you have to be able to change your mind, man. That's why you have to be able to change your mind. To be able to still hold back any of this from Nick Sirianni, it's just not fair. We can give credit to the players. We can give credit to the O-line, to Saquon Barkley, to Kellen Moore, to Fangio, to Howie. You still got to give your credit to Sirianni as well. It just doesn't make sense. How can you not? And a perfect example of this is the Dallas Cowboys, who won, 12 games, many years in a row. Okay, well, so then that means they have a pretty good team, right? That means they have pretty good coaching, right? Good quarterback, good defense, good offense, good play callers. And then their teams make bizarre decisions and aren't ready in the playoffs and get rocked at home. Is that on coaching? So that's win-loss on the coach. But then when the Eagles win-loss, when the Eagles had a couple tough losses, it was Nick Sirianni. But then when they win a bunch of games, it's not Nick Sirianni. They set the record for most points ever scored in a conference championship game. And Nick Sirianni has nothing to do with that. A game where they forced 3 fumbles, 4 total turnovers. We'll just take away the 1 turnover because that was at the end of the game. Jane's just trying to do anything. So we'll just say like real 3, turnovers. That were all there because of something that the Philadelphia Eagles head coach constantly preaches in every single meeting. Day after day after day. Interesting. Very interesting. You know, it's also reported that like, you realize it was Nick Sirianni who instilled the brotherly shove. You know, the most unstoppable play in the NFL. You realize that, right? That was Nick Sirianni. Like, Nick Sirianni is the one that said, this is what we're going to do. This is the play that we're going to work on. This is the play that we're going to do. This is the play that I'm going to call. That was Nick Sirianni. That was Nick Sirianni's decision to make that a foundational component to the Philadelphia Eagles. Going for it on these 4th and short downs. Being aggressive. That was Nick Sirianni. And sure, he's made some mistakes throughout that process. No doubt. But it's also led to a lot of successes. A lot of successes. 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. And you know, it's pretty impressive to do that with a not very good quarterback. According to some of these guys, by the way. I mean, 2 Super Bowls with a bad quarterback or an average quarterback? So the Eagles have now made it to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years with an average quarterback and a bad head coach, or maybe just like an okay head coach. That's pretty impressive. What does that make then some of these other coaches who are great or elite or special who can't do that? Who can't get their teams ready? What about the great coaches that have only been to like 1 Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowls in like a decade or 20 years, 30 years? What does that mean? Can you tell me? Because I don't know then. I don't know. It's almost like football is a really complicated sport with a lot of moving parts. And we can't distill everything to just these singular things like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Andy Reid. Maybe it's because there's lots of things going on. Maybe it's because, like I always say, multiple things can be true at the same time. I don't know why it's so hard. A lot of people come at me, and I get it, because this is interesting. You know, YouTube's so interesting because we're building a community here, and it's a lot of people who know me, and they watch a lot of video. You know, they watch a lot of videos, so they really know how I think, a lot of my opinions, etc. And then there's definitely some people who maybe they watch specific videos. Maybe they only watch Bills videos or Eagles videos, or maybe they're new and they've only watched for the last month, or maybe this is the very first video that they've ever seen. And the funny thing is like, sometimes I root for myself to be wrong. Seriously. So you can see me change my mind. So you can see me be like, yeah, man, I was totally wrong. And yeah, this team's great, blah, blah, blah. And how I won't continue to undercut a player or team or whatever to try to force it into my original view that I made back in, September or whatever. So I could be like, look at this perfect example of this. I mean, I've done it already throughout this season. Again, the perfect example of that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. I don't know why it's so hard. It's not that hard to do. It's actually really easy. You say it with a smile on your face and you go, yeah, man, I was wrong. This is really impressive what they're able to do. Like, it's not that hard to be at this table and say, you know what? I really still have a lot of questions about Nick Sirianni. I really do. I am a little concerned about that he doesn't call the X's and O's and this or that. And I do think this season got a little weird. But hey, man, they're winning. The team is connected. They care. They're passionate. They're going to the Super Bowl for the 3rd time in 2 years. He's got to have some control. He's got to have some impact on that. I'm still trying to figure out how, because it still doesn't make sense to me the way how I view how head coaches operate. And so I'm still a little like, I'm gonna try. I got a couple people who I'm gonna talk to who are ex-players or other coaches or GMs. Colin's always like, oh, I'm texting this one GM and he's friends with Sean Payton. Like, I'm gonna go talk to some of these guys and try to figure out like what does Nick Sirianni bring to this table. I need to understand it more deeply, because it still kind of throws me off a little bit. I'm not 100% sold. I can't give him all the credit, but, you know, there's clearly something there, and I'm still trying to figure out what's wrong with that take. It's a very honest take, but no. Instead, it's trying to force this narrative. It's trying to force this take.
At number 3 is the Philadelphia Eagles. They've lost 6 of the last 7 games. They had a bottom 4 defense across the board in the NFL last season. They lost a future Hall of Famer, the leader of their team, the best player on their offense. Their coach and their quarterback don't get along. Their coach was known for one thing, kind of being a jerk on the sidelines, and now he's been like, no, I'm going to stop that. If anyone else could have told him that was a bad idea years ago, classic 2, once again. And all of those things, they come into the season on the hot seat. They have 2 great receivers. I know that. I don't know much else about this football team other than Greg, and I have the Dallas Cowboys being that one team, and I have Philadelphia firing their coach during the season.
Wow. We do kind of possibly agree.
That's what happens when you just can't see beyond a take. Marry your girlfriend, marry your boyfriend. Marry your best friend. Don't marry your take. Don't do it, guys. Don't do it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Nick Sirianni? Do you think it's time to give him credit? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.